But we don't know the actual word.
David, don't you sit here. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, we got to get serious for. Oh, got to finish. President Carter, welcome to our homeschool crowd. We haven't actually. Julia's probably out there thinking, where are the videos? Well, it's been kind of crazy, Johnny, at Heartland the last few weeks. But today, we're going to finish President Carter. And by the way, if you're in the homeschool crowd, you'll get the all the notes for this section sent to you. You've missed so far. Well, what do we know about Carter besides what's up here? Where's he from? What state?
I don't.
What state? Maybe you want to write that in your margin, because I didn't put that on there. Where is Carter from? He became governor of what state? Georgia.
Oh, yeah.
So maybe out there in the margin. He's from Georgia. Yesterday, this was not on there. So when I was looking today, I was like, whoa, I didn't put the Vice President Mondale on there. This is going to come into play later because this guy right here is going to be a footnote in history because in 1984, he's going to be the Democratic nominee that loses 49-1. To who? So he's going to win Minnesota. Where he's from. That's it. 49-1 in 1984. The common thinking in 76 was, listen, the Republicans, because of Nixon and Watergate, have messed things up so bad. You can run an aardvark and win. It doesn't matter who was running. Although we found out that it was actually pretty close. Closer than the Democrats probably thought it was going to be. Not only is Carter's from Georgia. What? Carter's from Georgia. Walter Mondale's from Minnesota. Carter was also, what was his family business? Peanut farmer. Listen, you got this regular guy, Christian. America needs honesty. America has been racked by this whole Watergate thing. America's losing its trust in its governmental institutions because of this. We need a guy we can trust. Here's a guy who, on all accounts, is a wholesome Christian man. He's a farmer. He works with his hands. You're going to see him in jeans more than you are a suit. This is what America needs. He's very concerned about, most people are concerned about money. This guy's big concern is human rights. He wants to make sure people, not just in America, but all around the world, are not being abused for whatever reason. Race, creed, slavery still is today, but then was still prominent around the world in certain places. Like we know, for instance, today in China with the Uyghurs, maybe you don't know, but there's a group of people that are being enslaved and even accusations of genocide going on in China. That friendly country on the other side of the world, not. And we need to be more wary of and start treating like the enemy that they are. But anyway, that was his big thing. He wanted to be the spokesperson on behalf of all of the underprivileged, the people that are being oppressed and abused around the world. But the problem with Carter was he didn't have what's called cachet. He didn't have charisma. Right? You know what I'm saying? He didn't have that it factor that would lead not only Americans, but certainly not world leaders. Reagan and Trump, when it comes to working with world leaders, for whatever reason, they got that. They got that it. Trump could publicly declare how, hey, yeah, I get along good. That guy's a smart guy. And meanwhile, he's making the deals that are making America benefit finally, right? You hear President Trump talk about President Xi in China, the Communist Party. Yeah, almost makes think he's his best friend. Yet he turned the tables for all of my life. China taking advantage of America financially. and he got that turned around. Or even, what's the guy's name in North Korea? Kim Jong-un used to be ill. I think that was his dad, right? That was his dad. And Trump's like, oh yeah, he goes and visits him, and we didn't hear much about it. North Korea. When Obama was president, they were practicing these nukes, and then this past 6 months they started doing it again. Weird how that happens. Panama Canal. Turn of the century, America, down there in Panama, built this waterway connecting the Atlantic and Pacific Oceans. By 1977, it's time to give up that control to the locals, Panama. Or is it? Some people thought we shouldn't do that. And the deal was by 2000, it was Bill Panama. It was. This is the big highlight of Carter's presidency. It brought together Egypt. This is a big deal. Egypt is a large Arab country. If Egypt recognizes Israel as a state, by the way, Israel became a state in 1948. I like this now, except I wrote my mind backwards. Israel was not a recognized state until 1948, but it still wasn't recognized by its neighbors, the Arabs, who want to kill them. Right now, there are many countries surrounding Israel that have said publicly they would like Israel to be wiped off the face of the earth. So Carter getting this done was a big deal. Egypt publicly, internationally recognized Israel as a sovereign state. Then we got, no nukes. Carter's trying to get the Russians on board to limit nuclear capacity. People were worried about, how many times over? We have so many nuclear weapons, we could destroy the earth 5 times over. When is it enough? So we wanted to get the Russians involved in, let's scale things back in this Cold War. So we would make an agreement with them, SALT 1, and they would renege. And we'd find out that they weren't being true to the treaty. Okay, let's go meet with them again. You promised this time? No. America today with Iran. Iran wants to become a nuclear power. Before Trump, they were on their way. America had a treaty with them, a deal. And they were going to be good, right? They were going to abide by the deal, not continue to develop nuclear weapons. They were only going to use it for, power, like electricity. Right. So President Trump put an end to that deal because he's like, this is the worst thing he's ever seen. By the way, what else did we do during Obama? We sent, there's pictures, you can look it up, pallets stacked with all the Hundies, the Benjamins, and the Grants, Benjamins. Billions of dollars in the middle of the night we sent to Iran, things that most people don't know. Well, Trump came and said, what are we doing? This is a country that hates us, calls us the great Satan, but we're dealing with them like we think we're going to be giving them money, they're going to be friendly with us. Anyway, this was with Russia, and we'll learn from President Reagan that you can't really trust them. Then, as you learned in the video, the religious leader, the Ayatollah, took out the Shah. The Shah had to run, flee. He was the king of Iran. And this Ayatollah ends up ordering the taking of 52 American hostages, and they're going to be held for 444 days. To many Islamic countries, America is the great Satan. Maybe Israel is the little Satan, yes. But because of our allegiance to Israel, not only should they be wiped off the earth, it would be better if America didn't exist, as expressed on 9/11, 2001. We saw that video, right? Yes? No? This would be the video specifically about the hostages. I don't think we did. Not at all.
So it was November 4th, 1979, when the Islamic Republic of Iran stripped 52 Americans.
Lights, please.
So it was November 4th, 1979, when the Islamic Iran stripped 52 Americans, their freedom, their dignity, and their pride. 52 hostages were held for 444 days in Iran from the end of 1979 until January 1981.
My father was William Kim. He was a hostage in Tehran. He was only supposed to be there for the weekend, and all hell broke loose.
They brought Iranian women to the front door and used them as shields through the American embassy. So I will never forget the human rights of 1970.
Listen, I probably brought this up before somewhere along the line, that America is not perfect, but one of the big problems America has with being the leading country in the world, whether we like it or not, is that for the most part, we're always trying to deal with people, a light to the world. But when you're dealing with people that don't care about truth, they don't care about love, all they care about is power and making everybody else submit. You hear what they did? And they, hey, America would never bomb a hospital. So what do? Commandeer the hospital. Or America would never bomb a school, so they take over the school. They use human shields all the time. So even when they did this, they send women as a front.
52 hostages were held for 444 days in Iran from the end of 1979 until January 1981.
My father was William Kim. He was a hostage in Tehran. He was only supposed to be there for the weekend, and all hell broke loose.
They brought women to the front door and used them as shields as they broke the embassy. So I will never forget the human rights of what they did to the Iranian women then, and obviously what still goes on to this day. Through the broken windows, I can remember hearing the traffic start in the morning, peak, and then die. And it would be day 1, day 5.
Two totally different things.
The people of Iran look more towards Iran.
The younger generations are coming on set, and they're being told to people forward.
And we believe that there's many Iranians that would love better than what they have.
By the way, that's the other concern America has to have, right? So when we have aught with another country, we don't want to go. In old days, if you will, countries fought wars, like you go back to World War II. Hey, Blitzkrieg, you just bomb the place, right? We don't just go bomb our enemies because civilians might die. That's why the My Lai massacre was such a big deal, right? You go to the history of other countries, the My Lai massacre isn't as big deal as it is to our country. That's America. We don't do that. So what are we supposed to do with Iran? The people don't want this, by and large. Leading the country and are becoming a threat. And if they get nuclear weapons, what do we do with that? Now have nuclear weapons who supported 9/11. And now they got nuclear power, atomic bombs. Why is this doing this to me? Yeah. Yes. Questions, comments, or strange prayer request? You pray for the people of Iran. You pray that Iran is destroyed. That makes sense? You pray that the government that just now is destroyed, but at the same time, you're able to save those people that don't want that kind of government. People desire freedom. Finishing President Carter. President Carter's presidency back home is known by this euphemism called the misery index. That doesn't sound good. The misery index was kind of developed in 1970s because of how bad it was in the economy. And the misery index today is a combination of inflation, unemployment, and interest rates. When Carter was president, and you don't need to know who the person was that came up with it, but the formula was just these two. Normally, in a good economy, if you add up the inflation rate and unemployment, it's going to be about 6 or 7. In America, if 96% of the people are employed, only 4% unemployed, we consider that good. Because 4% might be like, hey, I just chose not to work this summer, or I'm in between jobs. I just stopped that job and I'm not starting a new job for a month or two. We accept kind of a 4%, that's considered really good, right? So if you take 3 or 4% unemployment and then you add to that inflation, normal is like 3%. Like I could live with, because I get a slight, everybody, your parents work, get a slight raise every year, right? It's kind of normal. You get an annual raise. And if it keeps up with inflation, say it's only 3% raise, okay, but prices don't go up that much, so you continue living just like you have. What about 2022? If you got a 3% raise at your job and inflation's 10%, you're down 7%. You're effectively have to live on 7% less money. You might be thinking, what's the big deal? Well, it is a big deal. How many of your parents could say, hey, I got my paycheck, you know what? Just keep 10% of it. That's basically what's happening right now. And actually, it's more than that. Because inflation right now is 8.3, they say. Guess what it doesn't include? The 2 biggest things that affect your family, gas and food. That's crazy, but it's not included in that number, but it's not. We know gas is record high, and your parents will tell you when you go grocery shopping this week that they're spending more than they ever have on groceries. And that's not even included. Now, we're talking about like we're really worried about it today. Look at these numbers. These 2 numbers combined, just these 2, almost 22. There was 14% inflation. I got a much better appreciation for my parents with how they had to get through the late 70s and the 1980s. 14% inflation. We're complaining about 8%. Unemployment near 8. That adds up to 22. But like I said, today we count the misery index. We count all 3 of these. Because all 3 of these are very important to the way your family lives their daily life. Your family lives their daily life hoping that prices don't go up. They hope they're employed. And they hope that if they want to buy something, that they're not going to get gouged with interest rates, that they can buy it at a very low interest rate so that their payments aren't going to be that high. You with me? So right now, we got like, unemployment's not that bad of a thing right now. Maybe probably 6%. But inflation at 8%, that's 14. Interest rates right now are like 5.5%. So we're getting close to a misery index of 20. Not near as bad as it was in 1980. But normal would be like 12. That would be like your economy's doing really good. Hey, if you're good at math, what was the interest rate? If you guys know anything about math and interest rates, this is going to blow your mind. What was the interest rate in 1980? If the misery index during Carter's years only included these 2, 18%. Do you understand what that means? Your family, you're going to buy a car or a house. Right now, if your family was to buy a house at say 5 or 6%, they pay their mortgage. Let's use an easy number like $100,000. By the time they were done spending over 30 years for the house, it's going to be over $200,000. They accept that. That's normal. You understand what I'm saying? That's a normal thing because you're paying payments each month. You don't have to come up to $100,000 right now. So that's what you That's the give and take to get the 100,000. 18%. Now the house that you buy for 100,000, by the time you're done buying it, it's almost $400,000 that you've had to pay back. To put it in simple terms, that's a big deal. That's how bad it was for Carter. 1979, we're going to buzz through these. Carter and Congress established the Department of Education. You might be thinking, wait, there was no Department of Education before 1979? The answer is yes, just like there was no income tax before 1913. America lasted 140 years before they decided, hey, it would be a good idea if the federal government decided to tax your income that you get at your job. How did we survive all that time without it? And we survived over 200 years without having Washington, D.C. dictate what you get taught in school. How'd that happen? And now we accept it like it's normal. Those are the hostages for 444 days. Two key numbers, 52 and 444. So Carter's got the worst economy in history, besides the Great Depression. And he's got 52 Americans held hostage for 444 days. In January, he issues, you know how these presidents like to have their doctrines, like the Monroe Doctrine. He says, hey, anybody threatening the Persian Gulf area, America is going to take that as a personal threat to our way of life. By the way, why? Why are we, remember Monroe Doctrine, we're going to take care of this part of the world because this is where we're at, right? Why are we so interested in the Persian Gulf area? In 1980, Carter said, anybody that threatens the Persian Gulf area, we're going to take that as a threat. Why are we so interested? 3 letters. I'll give you the middle letter. Oil. Listen. Oil. Persian. When you think of the Middle East, those countries around the Persian Gulf are the ones that, for my whole lifetime, have controlled the whole oil industry. They control how much they're going to produce. So America's always been like, oh man, we're supposed to be done with carbon. We'll blame it on Lexi for making me do all this paper.
Better get out of 3.
I didn't see the announcements.
Did you ask?